Welcome, Vol fans, to Rock Solid Sports. I'm Lucas Pezika, joined as always by Cody McClure and Miles Collins. Gentlemen, this past weekend, a heartbreaker in Neyland Stadium, the largest lead ever given up by the Vols at home, paired with the same game that sound records are broken in Neyland. Cody, what's your main takeaway from the Oklahoma game? I know there's probably several, but what's one?
Several takeaways, and it's hard to limit it just to one, but I think the thing that I look at the most is, well, I have two takeaways. First of all, Tennessee, Butch Jones and Mike DeBoer have taken a lot of criticism for getting too conservative as the game wore on, not calling plays to win the game with a 17-point lead. I think some of that's true, but also you got to realize that it comes down to player execution as well, regardless of the play calls. So I would keep that in mind. And my biggest takeaway from the game, though, is that Tennessee is going to be just fine. I was impressed. I mean, fact of the matter is, even though they blew a 17-point lead, they took the Oklahoma Sooners to double overtime. I think they're going to be just fine this year.
Yeah, and for me, Lucas, really, I guess I took a couple things away from the game. Like Cody said, you got to like what you saw out of this team. Tennessee played Oklahoma very well for three quarters. It's almost like if it was a three-quarter game, yeah, Tennessee would have won the game. They outplayed Oklahoma in a lot of aspects, definitely in the first half of the game, dominated, really rode that momentum as we thought they would if they could jump out and do that. The next thing I took away from that game, you still see a little bit of a young team. They got to learn how to close out games. When you've got a team on the ropes like they did, like an Oklahoma team, teams like that, you cannot let them come back and win. When you've got them against the ropes, you got to put them away. So in week one, Tennessee took a lot of criticism on the defensive side. The defense looked a lot better this week, and this week it was the offense in the second half. So really, you see a Tennessee team that needs to find a way to put it all together, and eventually they will. And then be a great team, but right now you're trying to see a team that's trying to, I guess, put both sides and put it all together as a whole.
Tune up this weekend before the Florida game next week for SEC play. Vols play Western Carolina Catamounts at home. What's one thing or one player you guys looking for in that game?
I'm looking on the outside at Spearman Robinson at wide receiver. Also a pretty good playmaker, the senior Darius Ramsey. They've got some weapons on offense. Know they got a pretty good quarterback too, but really what I'm looking for in that game is just to see how Tennessee responds this week.
Same. It's, you saw a lot of good things last week from Tennessee's offense in the first half. I'd look to see the same types of things. Don't let Western Carolina get any kind of momentum in the first half. Just put this team away early, get your win like they should. Look forward to Florida next week, and just come out and have a good game. Put that loss behind you last week and move forward.
Vols a little bit banged up after that game last week. Kurt Magid out for an extended period of time. Ladero McNeil is back after what everyone thought was a season-ending injury. Who's one guy in the Vols that you guys are particularly looking at this weekend?
Obviously, having McNeil back is huge, but I think the thing I'm looking for this weekend is I'm looking at Josh Dobbs. I mean, how can you not? After the performance last weekend, I want to see him come out with a little bit of fire this week. I want to see him throw some good passes. I mean, as the third and fourth quarter wore on last week, Dobbs just didn't look very good. So I'm looking to see how he responds, albeit against Western Carolina. I want Dobbs to have some momentum going into that game in the Swamp.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really curious about Josh Dobbs as well, because what you saw in the second half last week, it's just unacceptable. You can't have he's the leader of that offense, and you just can't have a scoreless second half against a very good Oklahoma team. But on the defensive side this week, I'm looking at players like Jalen Reeves-Maven to keep the momentum going that they showed last game. You know what you're going to get out of players like Cam Sutton on the outside. They're, your shutdown cornerback that's only going to get better, in my opinion. But I'm looking at the Tennessee defense to keep that momentum going forward that they had last game and show that they can be a good defense that we all thought they would be. And just look for Tennessee to play a lot better this week on both halves in the game and move forward to Florida.
The fact of the matter is that in 2 weeks, the Florida game, the 10-game win streak looms large. The Vols go to the Swamp. Tennessee, one of the favorites to win the East this year, so that's a huge game. But do you guys think that that's going to affect this weekend? What do the Vols have to do to not think about that and just get the W and start 2-1?
I don't think it'll affect this weekend too much. I think Tennessee, one thing I can say in Butch Jones' tenure, the Vols have always done a pretty good job of preparing for the next opponent, regardless of who that opponent may be. So I think Tennessee will come out ready to play. They'll take care of Western Carolina. Maybe there's a little bit of a look-ahead factor. Maybe this game's a 3-touchdown game instead of a 4-touchdown game. I don't know. But Tennessee should be ready to play Saturday.
Yeah, take it one game at a time. You can't look too far forward in the future. Keep the task at hand. Focus on Western Carolina. Get them out of the way. then move forward to Florida. Tennessee just needs to have their head on, tight this week, because it could be a little disheartening, and it can be a distraction kind of if you let it get to you with that Oklahoma loss and how they lost last week. But I look for Butch Jones to have their team ready to play this week.
A lot going on in the SEC landscape this weekend. Auburn plays LSU in Death Valley. Auburn, a rocky start after that 6th preseason ranking. A good start against Louisville, but then barely squeaked out in overtime win against Jacksonville State. Quarterback Jeremy Johnson, 5 picks in 2 games. What's y'all's prediction for that game in Death Valley?
That's a huge night game in Death Valley. Not a night game, it'll be a 3:30 game, but still yet, Jeremy Johnson has not looked good in 2 weeks after all the comparisons to Cam Newton. And he's thrown interceptions and just hasn't looked very good. So going on the road to LSU against a defense who's bringing back mostly everybody from a year ago, I like the Bayou Bengals in that one. I'd take LSU by a couple scores, probably 31-17 over Auburn.
Yeah, and for me, Auburn hasn't won in Death Valley since 1999. That's a pretty big stat. LSU looked a little shaky last week against a Mississippi State team. They should have won a little more handedly than they did. Could that be from LSU's first game being canceled? Possibly. Maybe they just need to shake off the jitters and get the game flow down. Now that they've done that, it's going to be a tight game, I feel like, because Auburn did not look good last week at all against Jacksonville State. I mean, that's a team you have to beat. You have to come out ready to play. Did they underestimate them? I don't know. But I tell you, Jacksonville State has a great position player at the quarterback position. But LSU didn't look good last week. Like I said, both teams didn't look good. This should be a pretty close game, in my opinion. I'm going somewhere around 31-24.
A pivotal matchup in the West with Ole Miss going to Alabama. Last year, obviously the huge upset with carrying the goalpost out of the stadium into the Grove. Does that happen again in T-Town this time?
I don't think so. I think it's going to be another low-scoring defensive battle. Ole Miss, the 2013 class of recruits under Hugh Freeze, are finally all juniors. They've got a very talented roster. And like you said, they beat Alabama last year, but the way the Crimson Tide have looked in the first 2 weeks, I've been impressed with Alabama, far more impressed than I thought I would be at this point in the season. So, tell you what, I'm going to go same score as last year, but I'm going to flip it around. Alabama 23-17 over Ole Miss.
Should be another good game. 2 good defenses coming in. Alabama, you got to look at, it's Alabama. What team can beat Alabama 2 years in a row? Not a lot of teams. I don't look forward to Ole Miss doing that this year. Nick Saban is 8-0 in his home openers against the SEC. I'm looking for Alabama to win a close one, somewhere about 28-24.
And finally this weekend, right here in Neyland, Saturday at 7 Eastern against the Western Carolina Catamounts. What do the Vols do in the week before SEC play starts?
Just not much to see here. I think Tennessee comes out, clicks on all cylinders. I mean, they should have no problem. I don't see this as an Auburn-Jacksonville State game like last week. Regardless if Tennessee's looking ahead to Florida, I just don't think Western Carolina has enough weapons to hang around for very long in this game. So Tennessee needs to come out, get some reps, get Josh Dobbs and Jalen Hurd running the offense, get those guys some rest at halftime, bring in some younger players, cruise out and get ready to go to the swamp. I'll take Tennessee 48-10 in this game.
Yeah, I mean, you should see a Tennessee team that's going to come out maybe with a chip on their shoulder. They should. Ready to click on all cylinders, as Cody said. Butch should have this team ready to play. But again, don't look too far forward, but Tennessee should come out and win this game convincingly. And if they play the way they should on both sides of the ball, yeah, Tennessee should win this game somewhere around 45-14.
Thanks, guys. We'll be back next week to preview the first true away game of the season when the Vols travel to Gainesville. But this weekend at 7 Eastern on Saturday, the Vols take on the Western Carolina Catamounts. Rock Solid Sports, I'm Lucas Panzica, Miles Collins, and Cody McClure. As always, we'll see y'all next week.
Take the chop this